guys, Amanda Solis here from the Growth Syndicate. In the heart of Peterborough, where football passion meets business innovation, we bring you an extraordinary story of transformation. From sweets to property, from military discipline to entrepreneurial success, Rob Facer of Barnack Estates reveals how strategic thinking, adaptability, and a commitment to people can turn challenges into opportunities. Join us for an inspiring journey of business growth, community impact, and the power of local entrepreneurship.
And obviously, the thing that connects you mostly is posh, is the football. It's the heart of the city, and it means so much to many people in the city. But the other thing that connects you all is business, and that's why Horace, Alec, Bobby and Harley and the team wanted to start to introduce some of these sessions through the year that had a business focus, where we can get someone to come along, share a bit of their story, but equally to give you a chance to ask questions that might be relevant to your business or might help you in that business journey. And, I always think business is a lot like football, isn't it? We got goals. Hopefully we've got goals, although you'll be amazed how many businesses are running without goals. And I wonder, how do they score then? But that's a question I get into a lot as I'm mentoring businesses. But a business that I've seen for too many decades now, I should say, because obviously Rob, you had his bio through as part of the invite, Rob Facer, Barnack Estates Limited, and we've got the MD Vanessa Pomeroy here this morning. But I actually knew Rob's father in the earlier iteration in Barnack Foods, and at the time I was head of shops marketing for ConocoPhillips, which is jet petrol stations in the UK, with about 600 dealer sites and 200 company owned. And the business started, didn't it, Rob, as sweets. So tell us about how you pivot from sweets to property.
Good morning. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and thanks for having me. So how did I pivot from sweets to construction? I'm going to précis this, but basically we got involved in retail selling sweets. So that taught me about looking after customers and clients. That business grew. We needed some space. I built a warehouse. That warehouse was to run the confectionery business from. And from there we had a bit of spare space. And from that we grew a storage and logistics business. And from there we sort of grew in. Basically, there was zero plan for the confectionery. I realised that dealing with the multiples at the time was very difficult. There was no security, no margin. And without any planning in those days, I sort of pivoted over to something that I really enjoyed, which was building something, construction, development and investment. So there's a lot more to it than that, but that's basically what happened over the last sort of 34 years.
And I think sometimes people think they have to stick slavishly to what they do or where the business started. And yet you hear so many stories. If you say to people now, what do Apple do? Anyone under 25 will probably say phones, whereas we know they started as a computer company. Nokia, which is phones, started as a paper company. And one of the things that's really important, I think, is they say nowadays, it's an American term and our language gets distorted slightly, but they say the riches are in the niches. Find your niche. What is your niche? And actually, I know the sweets business, because that was a connection that brought us together early on. You got a niche. It was £5 bags of sweets. And, you go into a petrol station, you think, oh, I'll get that and I can just eat one every now and again. The bag's gone within about an hour. But so many companies got on that bandwagon now. It become increasingly competitive. And as you say, need not necessarily planning sometimes pivots you into a different business area. And I'd say to people, if the niche that you're in is becoming broad instead of narrow, maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe it's time to look at something else. But your background wasn't just in that family part of the business. You've also had some spell in the military and some military involvement. How does that help business? How does that build into what you did and do?
Well, just picking up on the first point about how to pivot, we've probably all experienced situations where you get external factors that make you change what you're actually doing, but the principles remain the same. In this case, bags of sweets, we had a USP, unique selling point. We sold those sweets. Within 4 months, that got copied. Margins went down, so that made us look at something else. To answer the question about the military, I did 18 years in the military, that's the reserves. I was pretty high up. I did a lot of stuff. can't say too much. I was airborne trained, and I did a 6-month tour in the Balkans. It was a peacekeeping thing. I was fortunate enough to go through the ranks up to acting lieutenant colonel, and to do that I went through the military training process, Sandhurst, junior staff college, senior staff college, those sort of things. Plus I worked in the combat environment, I dealt with different people, a lot of experience. The military has a structure. They have a rank structure, which is easy to manage compared to a civilian structure, where you might have hierarchy, but you've actually got to bring the people with you. So the military have an advantage. You are taught to think in a certain way within the military. Call it SWOT analysis in Civvy Street, if you like, but it might be a mission command analysis in the military. Very similar thought processes. So I was able to adapt the military training and the line of thinking and the experiences that I had leading some extremely capable individuals in tough situations, and to convert that into the civilian business and indeed climbing environment as well, to ensure that we have a focus on what we're trying to achieve. Military speak, it's a mission. And in business speak, it might be a goal, a strategy, an aim, whatever it might be. So that helped me greatly.
And I'm honoured to do some stuff with military and also with sport, rugby, football, and so on. And everyone understands the sort of motivation, the structure, and so on. But one of the things that I see that come through in sport and military that some businesses are kind of stuck on at the moment seems to be that since COVID, and it was probably happening before COVID, we want everyone to be happy. And we think that happiness means we've got to let them all work at home all the time. We've got to be flexible. They can work any hours. We don't want to force them to do anything they don't want to do. And yet if we look at, say, military, we often take people with no training. So, and yet I see businesses, they want in the best trained people, but they've then got to unlearn bad habits they've got. So, and I know as businesses, we sometimes want that trained talent, but sometimes homegrown talent can mean that we teach them the structure, the disciplines, the processes that are going to be best for the business. But the key word that comes in all the time that seems to be missing in many businesses now is the importance of discipline, of really black and white lines around an area of grey. And talk to me about how that plays out in your business from bringing people on, bringing people through, training, discipline, structure.
So from my perspective, the principles are very similar, be it a football club, posh, rugby club, charitable organisation, military, or a business. There's a number of components that holds that business together. There's leadership, and you need to respect the leaders. You've got morale. Morale is absolutely vital to any organisation, and all the things that keep morale up, might call it happiness. Communication, I'm a big one about communication. In the modern age now, you tend to communicate by message, text, and email. Actually, you can't beat the face-to-face like this. So communication is so important. Support. How can you support people personally in terms of training and development? Looking at the capability of your organisation. So if you're clear what you want to achieve, maybe on the football pitch, then you've got to look at the capabilities. I guess the goalie, not that I'm a footballer, the goalie, the defence, the midfield and the attack. Business is the same. You've got to have the training and the skills. Once you're clear what you're trying to achieve, you've got to make sure you've got those capabilities in there. And all those sort of tenets come through. One final thing I think is quite good for any organisation is to have a flat organisation. You don't want lots of tiers of ranks and structure. If you've got a flat organisation, you've probably got good morale. It means that you can react very quickly to opportunities and threats. It's what I call a quick decision-making cycle. So Vanessa here today. Vanessa and I work extremely closely together, and we can react immediately with our team to any opportunity, as I say, and threat as well. So flat structures.
And I mean, I think that's really important in terms of the motivation. And often when people talk about motivation, what they're looking for is the motive for action. Why do people do what they do, and how can you structure or motivate them to make them do what the business needs? And one of the things I want to talk about, because it's quite unusual these days, is you incorporated in the Barnack Estates in 1987. So a couple of years is going to be 40th anniversary, which is exciting. But you made a decision, and forgive me, you're going to have to tell me the date, to, in effect, gift part of the business to all of your staff. So they now have ownership in the business. What does that, where was the thinking behind that? Because a lot of people, I'm going to keep the shares, it's like we never give away the equity and so on. And yet, how does that change motivation, commitment, teamwork? And where did that come from as a business decision?
Okay, so what Mike's talking about is something called an EOT, Employee Ownership Trust. It's quite a relatively new thing. It's a bit like a John Lewis partnership model, if you know what that is. So in other words, the employees own the business through the trust. The reason, without going into too much detail, I have no children, my wife and I have no children, so we were looking at our accession plan on what did we want to do. Yes, we wanted to extract some funds from the business, but do it the right way. And we wanted to reward the staff that were within the business. So we researched it, and the HMRC and all the technical stuff you need to do to set up the trust, and we set it up 3 years ago. So we also recognise, coming back to my capability point, and this comes back to the point, if you know what you want to achieve, i.e. if you know where you're going, you know how to get there, we realised that we needed a very strong up-and-coming management team to come through, led by, in this case, by Vanessa. So we spent 3 years putting that team together so that I could actually step back and do the genuine chairman's role. In terms of morale, the senior management understand what they've got, and they're extremely motivated. Probably the team below don't really realise how wealthy they are because it's on a balance sheet, and they won't realise that. But they are extremely motivated. Our staff retention is extremely high. We've got people that have been with us beyond 26 years. It's a long time. And morale is on the whole good, and they're happy to work under pressure. So we've got that cohesion, and that EOT wrap has helped to maintain that cohesion. That cohesion then leads through to effectiveness, and that leads to productivity. And that's why Barnack as a whole and as a team are very high performers and achievers.
So I am going to open it up to all of you guys to ask Rob questions in a bit. So start formulating any questions you've got. And I've known Rob for a while, so I know he's not afraid of any questions that you might want to get into. And really, that's what this kind of session is about. It's asking the questions that are there and niggling, but you maybe think, I don't want to ask that. That might be a stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And what I find on a behavioural profiling sense is thank God for the people who ask questions, because there's always 3 or 4 others that wish they could ask that question but didn't want to. So start thinking of that. And just to your flat structure, as you were talking about that, and then the ownership element, it's really hard in businesses and certainly in oil companies to get people to drop below their level, because there's a level of ego that comes in, or to challenge up easily. But having the ownership element, people are more likely to get stuck in wherever, because that is what unites them in a different way. So would you recommend it, having done it for a few years now?
Most definitely, yeah. It's never look back. It's a difficult thing to do, to let go of your business. You lose the majority. That's one thing, and also to let go and let people, the team, come through. And you can't overmanage. I find you've got to try and be there to be support, help, steer, guide, use your experience. Sometimes let things go on that perhaps you wouldn't normally let go on. But that's a transition, and that's part of an organisation or a business growth. Yeah. I certainly do not regret doing the EOT. It's outstanding.
Thank you. And let's go back a little bit, because some people might not know the business. And you talked about the Barnack Estates starting from the need for a distribution centre. Roll forward to now, and people don't like boasting. I know you're a very humble man in that sense, but tell us, what is Barnack Estates? How many square foot of sheds, offices, buildings do you now operate and own and built?
Okay, so out of Barnack Estates, there's a satellite of other businesses around that. They're pretty much all property related. But to sort of summarise, we've been constructing in East Anglia for the last 20 years. We've built over 4 million square foot of warehousing, known as SME, small medium enterprises. Put that in probably about 600 warehouses. So if you think about that, that's somewhere for businesses to live, work and operate from. We've developed predominantly in Peterborough, but currently we've got sites of Biggleswade, Erith, St Ives, Huntingdon. We've pivoted, if that's a new word. We actually don't employ directly that many people. Reason for that, 5 years ago, I recognised that employing people was going to be extremely expensive, which regrettably has turned out to be true. But we're actually, as we speak at the moment, Vanessa and I are probably looking after about 200 people. That would be consultants, people on sites. We've currently got 7 sites working, and we've got a land bank for SME sites, all with planning permission and with secured electricity. So we're ready to build once we've got an economy to build into.
And what a great story, and we're really honoured and pleased that you agreed to talk today. But I know in the room there are people involved in construction, in surveying, in architecture, in legal, in and around that area. And I know we all share frustrations. We've had connections, a bit through politics and a bit through Chamber of Commerce. What's the biggest issue? Because you said all those sites have got planning, and I know we've talked before about the nightmare that is planning. What's the biggest issue that you have to deal with as a business that gets in the way of you just growing and scaling business?
Getting planning permission.
Yeah.
Let me expand on that. I know there's a lot of property people in here. Without planning permission, we can't build, simplistically. I'm not talking about the controversial planning. I'm talking about delivery of planning service. That is the big problem. I do not believe that planning services can be delivered from people at home when they should be working. They need to be in the office, all the consultees. The planning policies, fair enough, you have to meet the planning policies, be it archaeology, ecology, trees, whatever it might be. Those bars are quite high now, and to meet those policies is quite difficult, but that's what we have to do. My biggest beef is just deliver a service. That's all it is. I haven't had a planning decision made on time for the last 5 years, and that's across 3 authorities. I can directly relate that back to March 20, which is when the furlough scheme started, COVID, and it directly relates to individuals being at home during the working day. And I think that is the fundamental problem. So planning is the big one. Labour skills is probably the second one. I think we all know that, and there is a shortage of quality labour. Finance is the third point. We all need finance, the working capital to deliver. Interest rates are pretty high at the moment. Who knows where they're going to go? But that obviously is holding the market back. So I think they're the 3 things really: planning, skills, and finance.
And one of the areas that, or 2 areas, I guess, that often come up in business discussions, in addition to that, are sales and marketing. And marketing has changed beyond recognition in terms of how we try to suck people in rather than just reach out, the usage of social media rather than traditional advertising and so on. To what degree do sales and marketing play a part in Barnack, building of the brand, getting recognition of the brand to attract the right people? Are they hand in hand? Is it a big part of your business, or are you just known and people come to you because of it?
So this goes back to my retail experience, really. You've got to look after the customer. That is absolutely vital. And I'm always driving that home to the team. Fundamentally, you've the market is about supply and demand. You've got to build a product in the right place at the right price for the right quality, and people will buy it. And it is as simple as that, really. So supply and demand. In terms of marketing, reputation means a great deal, and we do get a lot of repeat business and people coming to us. With the younger generation coming through, I'm a bit of a Luddite and I don't do any social media whatsoever, but we are now getting a lot more traction through LinkedIn, websites, pages, and that sort of thing. And I know that is the future. We are doing a lot more design and build, and that we have won through reputation and also through essentially cold calling via those mediums. Whereas previously we've been known more for development. We wish to do both. We want to do development. We're ready to do development. We just need an economy to go into. Once you do the development, that comes back to those points made: the right product, right price, right place, and then you get good marketing agents as well, and you make a deal simple. You structure a deal so they can get it over the line. So you don't want deal preventions. You want a solicitor that's on side and will actually make it happen. Solicitor on side on both sides of the deal. I hasten to add, if there's a solicitor in here. And you just make it happen. And that helps to enhance the reputation, to be known as essentially as a deal maker and deliver what you're going to do, what you say you're going to do.
And as you say, some things move forward. Marketing is changing, outreach is changing. But some things sometimes get lost in that transition. And one of the big areas where I see newer businesses, younger businesses struggling is in seeing the value of networking. Now, we bump into each other a lot at events, not just Chamber, all sorts of areas around Peterborough, Cambridgeshire, here. What do you say is the importance of networking, and how do you yourself, but also suggest to your team they get out there and build the relationships? Because we can all sort of spout the sayings of, your network is your net worth, and people work with people they like, know and trust. But often we go to networking events and speak to the same two people that we've always spoken to, and we look for people that we know. How important is networking in a business like yours?
Well, I would say it's vital, and that's above very important. We're all busy, I understand that, and there's only so much time that you can put to these sort of events. But actually getting out in the face-to-face and meeting people is vital, because you can essentially see the whites of their eyes. You can talk to people. You can do so much by messaging and texting and emailing, but it's not the same, particularly in the construction industry, where it's a very nuts and bolts, hands-on type of business. So the networking, I know there's a lot of networking. There's this event, which is excellent, opportunity, Peterborough do stuff, the Chamber do stuff, and there's other events on. So there is a big demand on time. But I would advocate, and I do it myself, to try and put some time aside to actually do the networking and to mix it up. We actually put networking into our business plan, believe it or not. I don't know whether anybody thinks of that. And it comes under the marketing umbrella. How do you do that? So I would say vital.
Thanks, and it's the right answer. Otherwise, we'd have trouble with this audience, wouldn't we? But we touched briefly on. You said a few times, talk to people, meet with people. Don't let the efficiency and the changing way that we can interact and communicate, that is really positive, actually, it can save us a huge amount of time, but completely take away the personal element. And, I was speaking to someone only a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying they call it hyper-personal messaging. So all too often, we'll put something out on WhatsApp to a big group, or we'll send an email to several people. But in seconds, you could send someone a voice message, or you could just give them a call and say, hey, listen, I was just thinking about you, and I saw this. And it's something that weaves into their particular role, their particular interest, maybe their family, maybe their interest in football. But it's when you're talking about something that has nothing to do with what you need them for, but shows that you care. And it's around this saying, what started the conversation with this guy was, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And clearly, as you weave that through, and we've spoken before, that community, that family, that connection, and no surprise that you opened the company up into the EAOT because you did. But how much do you make sure the business does keep that face-to-face, voice-to-voice, as opposed to newer methods of communication?
I personally think it is extremely important. I'm always talking about outstanding communication within our business, because I see so many organisations that communicate by email and so on. Depends what the business is, and I think within the construction development industry, a lot of it is about people and interaction and making things happen. So I am a very big advocate of networking, face-to-face, get together. You have to be careful to make sure that it is adding value, and you've got to look at your time, because the time is not an infinite resource. How many meetings do you have? Those sort of things. So there are methods of communication. I genuinely, if I feel in my business the email traffic is getting too high and I've got someone in an office next door to me and they want to email me, I don't reply. I go around and talk to them. That culture then develops within the business. So that's very important. That comes back to the communication point that I mentioned earlier. And if you've got outstanding communication within an organisation, then people understand what you're trying to achieve, and then they can use their initiative to achieve what you want to do. In the military, it's called mission command. I don't know what you call it in Civvy Street, or in business, but it's the same principle.
So, and let's bring that back to Peterborough. You're a well-travelled man in many parts of your career. I know you travel a fair bit today still. You could live, you could work, you could build the business anywhere. But Barnack obviously is in the name. Peterborough is important to you. Why Peterborough? What do you like about Peterborough and what keeps you here?
Well, I'm a Peterborough lad. I went to school at Orton Longville, played rugby, not football, at Peterborough. Peterborough, frankly, has been extremely good to us. We've done a huge amount of development and made a lot of money in Peterborough and in the region. I'm extremely pro what Peterborough's doing. We've sort of got the heart of, the posh is really the heart of Peterborough, the club here, which is tremendous. I do look at regional. Peterborough is our city and know that extremely well. But regional development and growth in terms of schools, roads, open spaces, jobs, houses, and so on is very, very important. And over the years, I've sort of been involved in trying to help to shape how that infrastructure could develop to the benefit of Peterborough. So Peterborough is very much at the heart of what we do, and I've certainly got no plans whatsoever to leave Peterborough.
No, and absolutely the same for me. 5 generations of my family have lived, worked and enjoyed Peterborough. I hope the next generations continue to do that. I caused a bit of a stir a couple of days ago. I put a post out about everyone moving abroad, and honestly, I just was putting it up for debate, but like 60,000 people are giving me shit. Oh, you're boring, you should go to Dubai, you should go to Turkey and that, but we often think it's greener on the other side, but it's better to stay and be part of the solution where there's a problem. And actually, having had offices in New York, Washington, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, 18 European countries, I knew that if I went out late at night, I was always only ever 3 streets away from being mugged or killed. But sometimes we go on holiday and we think, oh, it's beautiful there, it's lovely, because we don't see the side streets. And I know that we have a passion for Peterborough, and it's an area that people don't want to go into. But one of the questions I wanted to ask is politics. One of the conversations we've shared quite a lot in the past is Peterborough specifically, Cambridge as a county. And a lot of people will say and continue to say that Peterborough is the poor cousin of Cambridge, or feels like the poor cousin of Cambridge, or has been treated like the poor cousin of Cambridge. Now, tomorrow we have a mayoral election, and sometimes people think elections can't bother to vote, governments still get in, they're all as bad as each other. This could be the first chance we get to get a mayor that is for Cambridgeshire, but lives in Peterborough. And, have you got any thoughts on the importance of politics and the city being recognised for the role it plays? It is now outgrowing Cambridge. It is seen as a cheaper place to build a business, a better place to build a business. And and I'm always passionate about getting Peterborough more noticed, more represented, and getting more politicians here. But what are your thoughts on politics, mayors, and all things around that?
Tough question. By the way, Mike, you're far more travelled than I am. All those offices all around the world. I've only got one in Peterborough, so. Yeah, I'm not going to go too far into the politics piece. And my politics is a very, very small p, and I'm very sort of centre ground. But in fact, the mayoral election's today, not tomorrow. So so just to remind everybody. Anyway. I'm going to talk about Peterborough's growth in terms of the emerging and the local plan. And just hands up, does anybody know that the local plan in Peterborough is actually being reviewed at the moment? Just hands up, just to show who knows that.
Gosh.
Okay, not many.
3.
Okay, right, that's interesting. So the local plan, or a local plan, basically shapes the region, in this case Peterborough, in terms of houses, jobs, roads, schools, and everything. It really is, if you like, the business plan for a region. And it's influenced by politics, and it's also influenced by infrastructure and logistics. But by logistics, I mean roads, electricity, water, all the things that are holding us back, data, internet, and so on. That's all in this plan. Now, this is a vital plan, because it actually shows the direction that, in this case, Peterborough and the region is going to go. Now, of course, the local plan has unitary boundaries. For instance, the boundary is the A1 over to the west, as I understand it. But of course, people live in one area, they work in another area, so they cross that boundary. So the unitary authority, which is where the combined authority comes in, does seem to be a very, very sensible thing to do, because then you're overarching those boundaries. So roads cross boundaries, electricity cross boundaries, people travel. So getting a more of a coordinated approach to the delivery of sustainable development, and I stress sustainable, is very important. So I think that is the direction of travel that the politicians are taking. Yes, the Peterborough Combined Authority election is today. It's true to say that as a combined authority has definitely underperformed since its inception, because they haven't performed the role of that overarching to deliver sustainable growth. I'm sure someone would argue with that, but the evidence is there. So I suggest it's a long read, but have a look at the local plan.
And make your voice heard. Sometimes we get sort of voting apathy. Whatever your vote is, left or right, stand up for something. Otherwise, we lose the right, I think, to complain about it. Now, last question before we open up to everybody, and another area that we've been working on within the lieutenancy for Cambridgeshire, literally the Royal Family's representation. Very proud to be a deputy lieutenant. But we're working together to try to get more companies in and around Peterborough to apply for the King's Award for Enterprise. Just a quick show of hands, who knows about the King's Award for Enterprise? Anybody? Okay, tiny handful. There's very few businesses that would not qualify to apply for one of the 4 areas that they award people King's Awards for Enterprise in. It is the equivalent of, I always remember it on the sugar packet, silver spoon, by royal appointment. It is that. It costs nothing to enter. This year's entry opens on the 7th of May. You can go in, it's quite a lot to go into, but I'm happy to, if anyone reaches out, to go through that at the bondholder breakfast on the 20th of May. We're going to be talking about the detail for that. But if you just Google King's Award for Enterprise, it's on the Gov UK website and it will tell you how to apply. It costs nothing, as I say. You can have from 2 employees up to 200,000. But the impact it has in terms of getting you recognised by royalty, by politics, internationally is massive. It literally can 10x a business very quickly because of the recognition that brand gets. So I'd really urge people, and I think we've got about 15, 20 people now interested, but there is no limit, by the way, any number within any county, and the Lord Lieutenants in every county compete to try and get more people to enter, because obviously they want more award-winning businesses for their county. Peterborough's always underscored in terms of within Cambridgeshire the number of people who apply for that. And I think some people think it's really complex. It isn't. It does require work, it does require detail, but it costs nothing to do it. It will change your business. So, have you got any thoughts on that? Because we've had a few meetings recently about it. But
We have. I mean, I'm pleased to be involved with this. I mean, it's excellent. I didn't know much about it myself until about 3 months ago. But just to add a sort of a bit of a sales pitch on it, it's not a competition. It's not a win or lose. If you meet the criteria, then you get the award. The award lasts for 5 years. Now, there is no company within Peterborough who's got this award, not because we haven't got the companies to do it. We've got some outstanding businesses, but we want to get more companies within Peterborough to get this award because it just raises the profile of Peterborough up, which is tremendous. So that's what we're aiming to do. I think Mike said everything about the practicality of it. One final point, though, is we have got mentors and support that can guide and help any businesses that want to apply for it. It's all online to help sort of not manipulate, wrong word, but put the right things in the right places to get the tick box to try and get the award.
yeah, and the last thing I'd say is it's an online application. You've not got to go and have an interview. You've not got to present. It all gets completed online. But the key thing that is the difference between those that win and those that don't is being able to evidence everything you say. Sometimes people say, we're an award winning. Where's the evidence? We're a sustainable business. Can you evidence that? And so getting that evidence in. And it actually is going through the process is like a really good strategic business review because the questions that they asked actually make a lot of companies think, we don't do that. Maybe we should promote that more. Maybe we should be able to answer that question, but we don't. But anyway, enough from me. I know you're here to see Rob mostly. It's an amazing business that's been going for 50 years in different forms, 37, 38 years as Barnack Estates. What questions have you got? Who's got a question?
That's a really good question. Long answer, really. I started by looking at what I wanted to achieve. And in essence, I wanted to be in a position to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So that was my start point. And I'm in that position. I'm very fortunate to be there. I'm personally extremely motivated and I've got no plans to stop driving forward with all the businesses. I certainly do not want to retire. So once I'm clear what I wanted to achieve, I then looked at how I needed to achieve it. So parking the EOT, I realised that I needed a strong management team to come through, led by Vanessa. So we then identified the people within the business that we felt could fulfil that. We then talked that through in scoping up and we put incentives in place as well financially. But more importantly, we put in place training plans and we brought in external trainers. And that included me stepping back. So I've been quite disciplined at that and I've tried hard, and maybe Vanessa will disagree with me, to step back and let everybody have their head, but also at the same time be there and be supportive where there's problems and whatever. So I think it's a mindset is a softer piece, but also putting in place the structure to do that. And that was the training and the development and so on. And on the whole, it's gone extremely well. And that transition has gone well. It's ongoing. It will never change. You know, it will continue to move forward. So hopefully that's answered the question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Who else has got a question? All right, we've got three. Let's start over here and then we'll work across. Hello.
Good question, and probably everybody will have a different view about how to deal with this. So personally, I'm not pro people being at home when they should be working. I know people call it home working, but for various reasons. But I suspect it's here to stay. And as you rightly say, there's a certain age group now that have sort of grown up and learned to expect it. I don't fully know the answer, but I do think that personal contact is very important because I don't think anybody can be overly productive, isolated at home. They don't have the support, they don't have the training and all the softer skills that go with it. So somehow you've got to try and get the balance right to get people into the office interacting with their colleagues as well as being at home. Obviously, some businesses are far better suited to working from home and having everybody at home, and I'm sure there's businesses like that. Our business isn't one of them. There's no way we could function if all our people were at home, and it just wouldn't happen because of the nature of the construction business. In terms of the communication, I'm going to call it culture. That culture is set by the leaders of the business. If the culture is to communicate by email, text, WhatsApp, then that is the culture, and then that you expect the output from that. It might be very efficient in getting that same message over in a one-line email. Everybody reads that, but everybody might interpret it in a different way. But leadership, and I know this from many things, be it mountaineering or in the army or in business, really to impose your leadership, and if you like, your will, for people to understand what you want to achieve, you've got to be there in person. I don't believe there is any substitute for that. So it's how you can deliver that in-person communication and leadership and management skill. I don't have the golden bullet for it, I'm afraid. Well, that's a good question. I've got a good answer for this. Okay. 5 years ago, I could see that employment costs were going up. NI, minimum wage, and so on. At the time, we had a storage and logistics business. We had a lot of pickers and packers. There's no way I could increase the efficiency to cover the wages that were required. So that was that external factor. So I then realised that I didn't want to employ too many people, all sorts of things. And regrettably, we've just been hit with a 25 billion employment tax bill in the current budget that came in April, with minimum wage, living wage, national insurance, and that is affecting this economy drastically. It'll be affecting all of us in here. The consequence of me not employing people means skills go down. So how do we deal with that? We still have long-term people working for us. We deal with IR35, which is a technical thing, but we also put those long-term people who are not directly employed through training. So I realised that a consequence of not employing people directly, we could de-skill. So we do a lot of training. We do a lot of focus on health and safety training on the building sites. We send managers on management training, communication courses. So even if they're not directly employed, but they're long-term working with us, and that could be anything from consultants, not that we've trained consultants too much, but certainly long-term ground workers been with us, digger drivers, all those sort of things. So we have that in the budget as well, and that goes to all staff that work with us. So good question, but we've got it covered.
Yeah. And a really good hybrid. And as you were saying that, I remember I used to work with Red Bull, and they were very passionate about the values of the brand, the way that the brand was represented. At the time, I was doing a lot of research with them. And although they were outsourcing that to us, and we had literally people, clipboards, interviews and so on at different events, they wouldn't let us put anyone on to ask questions of their customers or potential customers that wasn't a fit to their customer profile and hadn't been through the Red Bull Academy. So it was an insurance that they had the right values, they understood what was important to the business, and that was done at their expense, but to make sure that they as a brand were being represented by external businesses in the way that was important to what they stood for. Love or hate Red Bull, but it was good company. There was a question over here. Yeah.
Best deal, I took a risk and bought some land, 40 acres, without planning permission, that I thought might get planning permission, and I was able to get planning permission within 18 months, and that increased the value greatly. And that was a managed risk. So that was probably the best one. And it's fairly local. I mentioned earlier, we built 4 million square foot. Now, that doesn't mean a great deal. That is a lot of space that we've built. So we've built out a very large industrial estate at Eagle Business Park, Yaxley, and Enterprise Business Park there that is fully occupied now. We've got the remaining plot, 20 units up being built, and of those 20, we've got 11 sold off plan, which is pretty unique in the current climate. We've built a shed load of sheds down in Edgley Drain Road, a lot splattered around in Peterborough. We built Kingston Park. We've built some number of offices, Starbucks, some Grade A offices around the Hampton area, and then we've got a really good site at St Ives, which sort of complements Cambridgeshire, and we pride ourselves, as I mentioned earlier, in building quality product at the right price and what the client wants. And I think that's one reason why, and things are pretty tough at the moment, why we are still developing. And we've got everything in the starting blocks to start to develop quite seriously again, and building a lot more space for businesses to move into and to grow. At the end of the day, this space, you think of a warehouse as a home, people work there, people create wealth from there, they pay taxes that go into the local revenue and the national revenue. So it's vitally important to get quality employment land that's close to houses, and that's really what we've done, particularly actually. And thank you.
And as Rob says, thank you. We are coming to the end of the questions because I want to give you some time for a bit more networking, maybe get a bacon sandwich if you didn't get one, get another drink, and ask questions amongst yourself. Or are you around for a little while still?
I am, definitely.
Which is great. But let's thank, I want to thank Rob, but also want to thank Posh for putting this on. It does take work to do this, and the team were here early again after football, late at night often, and so on. And so Horace, Bobby, Harley, and the team, thank you. Thank you all for coming. But if you can also put your hands together and help me thank Rob and Vanessa for giving up the time and coming here today.